Hi, it's Lucy, and today I'm here to torture myself, also known as reading the next 4 books in the Pretty Little Liars series. If you haven't already seen the first video that I did for this series, I read the first 4 books in their own separate reading vlog, which will be linked down below in case you need a reminder, you also want to torture yourself. Those are basically the only 2 reasons you would need to watch that video. This video, like the other one, will contain spoilers for both those first 4 books, these 4 books, as well as spoilers for the TV show. And I will have timestamps for each individual book as I get to them, linked down below. So the 4 books are Wicked, Killer, Heartless, and Wanted. I honestly have no idea what's going to happen in these books. Here's some of my predictions from what I can guess. Obviously, we're going to see a new A, because if you remember from the first 4 books, A was Mona and she's dead now. More cringy dialogue, which isn't really a plot prediction, but it's fair. I think Maya's gonna die in these books. I don't know. I know she dies in the show. I feel like the show was not creative enough to make that up. I don't even think Maya's death in the show was very creative, honestly. I thought it was very weird and came out of nowhere, but that's another story. Allie's gonna come back because at the end of Unbelievable, I believe one of the liars thought that they saw someone who looked like Allie like pass by them. So obviously that was meant to be foreshadowing, I believe. So I think she's gonna come back within these 4 books. These seem shorter than the first 4, so hopefully this won't be too bad. And I think that's all I have to say by way of intro. I'm going to start the next book, which I believe is Wicked, Volume 5. Let's find out the synopsis here. Now that A's true identity has been revealed and she's dead, the girls can finally go back to their pretty little lives. Only once a pretty little liar, always a pretty little liar. And these girls just can't help but be bad. Hannah will do anything to be Rosewood's queen bee. Spencer's digging up her family secrets. Emily can't stop thinking about her new boyfriend. The boy is italicized because all of Emily's arc in the last 4 books was about her coming out as gay, so that is interesting. Maybe she's bi in the books. And Arya approves a little too strongly of her mom's taste in men. Is Arya gonna date her mom's boyfriend? Does Arya's mom date Ezra? Does he come back? Because he moved at the end of the last book. As the secrets get darker and the scandals get juicier, the consequences turn deadly. Who's gonna die? After all, girls who forget the past are condemned to repeat it. And in Rosewood, someone is always watching. I hope you appreciate my rendition of A as a narrator. So yes, that's what's gonna happen in this book. Let's find out. I'm actually excited to read this now that I read that. So now I'm a third through the 5th book of Pretty Little Liars, Wicked. Am I enjoying it? I'm not disliking it. Some silly, wild stuff has already happened. I'm just going to rank the parents of each character and talk about what happened in their situation so far. So we are ranking from best parents to worst parents. So first we have Emily. Her parents have really done a 180. I'm so proud of them. I'm still not sure about their racist tendencies. We haven't gotten back to that yet, but they really are trying with Emily. It's kind of weird, but Emily notes how they're trying to show that they're accepting, that they love her, they're trying to understand her. It's noted that her dad gives her tea for Christmas because he read online that lesbians like tea better than coffee. They're showing that they're trying. It's obviously, Emily in the book is like, I don't want to imagine my dad Googling lesbians, but, you know, I appreciate the thought. And her family seems to be the only people who somewhat understand the fact that her best friend, who was missing for 3 years, her body was found in a hole in the backyard of one of her old best friends. Her parents seem to be the only people who appreciate the gravity somewhat of that situation. All of the girls are going to therapy, but none of them like it because this book doesn't show therapy in a good light. None of the girls are into it, so that's not how therapy should work. You should find a therapist who clicks with you, you know? And their therapist does not click with them. Back to Emily's family. So what we have seen so far is Ian from the last book. Remember the guy who Spencer tried to date and also was dating Melissa for a while, but then didn't date Melissa, I think, or something happened. Melissa being Spencer's sister, in case you forgot. So, but at the end of the last book, Ian is arrested because Spencer remembers that she saw him on the night Allie disappeared. He was the last person to have seen Allie or something. I don't remember exactly what their justification was, but Spencer saw him doing something. Now that he was arrested, that's why all the girls were getting therapy. And Emily is like, therapy doesn't work because Allie was like my first love and all this stuff, which I mean, of all the people to choose for your first love, I know you don't choose it, but she's so terrible. Allie was awful. We keep finding out secrets about Allie and everything as the story goes on and on. She was a horrible person. How could a 6th grader be so awful? I really would like to know. So Emily has been withdrawn, and her mom is like trying to help her get out of her shell, and she's like, come to church with me, which obviously Emily is like, I'm gay. Her mom is like, no, that doesn't matter, it's fine. So she goes to the church. They're having some kind of like concert thing, and there's a guy on the stage in the band, and Emily's like, oh wow, he's really cute. And Emily's like, what do you mean he's really cute? He's a boy. I can't like boys. And then after the show, the guy talks to her. They have like an eye contact kind of thing, and he asks her on a date, and Emily gives him her number, and she's like, what am I doing? This can't be a date. I'm gonna tell him when we meet up that it's not a date. I'm gay. But she obviously is having feelings, so I think we are getting a bi Emily, which I'm here for. But obviously that's gonna be a struggle. Next we have Arya's parents. So they're number 2. In the last book, Arya's mom kicked her out of the house because she lied about her dad cheating on her mom, which I complained about this in the last video, but how can you blame your daughter for being put in such an impossible position that your soon-to-be ex-husband put her in? At the time when Arya first found out, she was 13, and even now she's like 16. Why would you expect that from your child? Arya's mom still disgusts me. But in this situation, they rank second best. We get to see Arya get a little closer to her mom, get back to how they were a little bit. She helps her mom prepare for a date. Her mom had been online dating. She planned to meet up with this guy, and the guy shows up, and Arya realizes it's the guy she met at an art gallery that her mom ended up giving her the ticket to. So Arya went to the art gallery pretending to be older, I guess, and she like flirted with this man. So when he gets to her house to go on a date with her mom, she looks at him and she's like, oh, I guess he could probably be in his 30s. Duh. But they have this awkward moment because they were like flirting with each other at the art gallery, and then he shows up to her house to go on a date with her mom, and he's like, oh, I know her. And they like play it off. In the 3rd place spot, which is officially designated bad parent, we have Hannah's parents. Hannah's dad, every like line he shows up in, I do not wish to see it. I wish he would be better. Her dad is now living with her new almost stepfamily. I don't know if he actually got married to Kate, who is her stepmom. Kate, her new almost stepmom, are living with Hannah and her dad now. And so Hannah has this whole new stepfamily. Her mom is in Singapore because she got a new job, and that's why her dad had to move in. And Hannah is obviously a ball of anger because not only do we have the whole thing with Allie being found in a ditch, and then someone that they think is the murderer is currently going on trial or about to go on trial. Plus, she had been harassed and stalked by someone who turned out to be her best friend. So Hannah has a lot on her plate, and nobody in her family seems to have much sympathy for her. Nobody in the school really has that much sympathy for her. I don't know. I can't imagine hearing that someone at my school, best friend, died and was stalking her, using that as ammo for bullying. But I don't know. I guess that's what happens. And so Hannah is obviously having a hard time. And then her dad like talks to her because she's not treating Kate as well as she could, because of what happened with Kate's betrayal, even though her dad doesn't see it that way. Like, fair for the dad not to see it that way, but then he also just, like, he's a terrible father. Like, he never talks to Hannah about any issues that she's having or anything like that. Like, after what had happened with Kate, which was that Kate claimed that Hannah gave her drugs and then she, like, left their family dinner or whatever, they should have had a conversation about it, but they didn't. And her dad just disappeared from the face of the earth for like the next like few months after that, because he was like, I can't trust you, Hannah. You're her parent. You have to talk to her. That would have been the first time that she'd ever done anything like that. So first of all, as a parent, you can't just disappear like that. That's not good parenting. That's not decent parenting. That's horrible parenting. And then he just shows back up and like, okay, I'll take care of you. I want to get closer to you. And then he talks to Hannah about how she's dealing with Kate and everything. And he's like, yeah, I know you've gone through all these horrible, torturous things, but you have to be nice to Kate. She moved here from a different state. So she left everything behind for you, Hannah. What? Did he ever talk to Hannah about the things that Hannah was going through? Hannah is still one of my least favorite characters. Do not get me wrong, but I do feel for Hannah because her parents suck so much. So while we're in Hannah's chapters, in Hannah's head, we just get to see her like dealing with the fallout of her friendship. She's now officially dating Lucas. I guess they've been dating since the end of the last book. So we get a glimpse of that. It seems to be fine for now. She's obviously having issues trusting people because Mona was really her only friend. And she's like, well, how can I make new friends now? My one best friend turned out to hate me. So how do I trust anyone else? Which is fair. But then at the end of Hannah's chapter, we get to see her and Kate have a heart-to-heart. But I do not trust Kate. This is part of why Hannah's my least favorite character, because she sees all these things happening and then she's so quick to trust. Kate is like, Hannah, you and I could be the most popular girls in school. We could rule this school together. And Hannah's like, yeah, I think we can do that. And I'm like, do not trust anything she says. No. And then finally we have Spencer, whose parents continue to be the worst, because at least Hannah's dad will speak to her. Spencer's parents continue to treat her like garbage, because at the end of the last book, she admitted that she stole her sister Melissa's essay for a big prize thing. And then Spencer ends up getting like stripped of a bunch of like extracurricular activities, and her parents are just very, very mad about it. And they like treat her horribly, like so horribly that her sister Melissa comments on it, even though Melissa is arguably the person who was most hurt because it was her essay that was stolen. So the biggest thing that's happened so far is that Spencer's grandma has died, and her parents show up at the school to tell her, and Spencer kind of doesn't know how to react because she wasn't that close to her grandma, but you know, it's obviously sad that someone died. And then she like feels like very distant from her parents, and her parents are like, okay, so we're gonna go now. And she's like, can you just stay a little bit longer for me? And they're like, no. Their daughter literally is saying, I need like some kind of consolation or something. And they're like, no. What? So that happens, and then they go to the will reading for her grandma's will. And it turns out that Spencer was disinherited, because in the will, Spencer's grandma says, I leave $2 million to each of my natural born grandchildren, which is very specific wording. And Melissa later is like, oh my gosh, what if she meant by natural born? That means you weren't naturally born, so maybe you were adopted. So that's where we are so far. And continually the way her parents treat her after this disinheriting, like Spencer's like, can we talk about what just happened? Like, I don't understand why I specifically was called out, like what's happening? And then her mom like refuses to talk to her about it, still treats her like shit. Like, it's so weird. I just can't understand any of these parents. Oh, the most important part. Sorry, I forgot about this. Ian is let out of jail because his mom has cancer, I think, or she's like dying. So they're like, oh, you can go home for house arrest so you can see your mom. All the girls are really stressed out because they're like, oh my God, he's gonna do something to us, which fair, because they really do think Ian killed Allie. Oh, I should say, I don't think Ian killed Allie. Maybe Ian will die. But I did just want to point out some quotes, because Ian's defense attorney is really not doing his job in regards to making sure his client seems innocent, since that's what he's pleading. I am not a lawyer, but from all of the Law and Order and various other lawyer shows I've seen, you really should not let your client talk, especially when they're on trial for murder, and especially in a way that makes them sound threatening. When he gets out of jail, he says, whoever put me in here is going to pay. What? You're trying to convince people you're not a murderer, and you sound like you're about to beat someone up. And then he says, I'm never going back there. So I think that's foreshadowing, actually. I think he's gonna die, maybe at the end of this book. I did it. I finished Wicked. It was fine as an installment, but nothing really happens. I don't feel that the quality of writing in this series is that great, but I am enjoying the ride. I am once again going to tell you the happenings, the goings-ons of the plot of this by ranking each of the girls' parents from best to worst. So the best parents in this book are Emily's parents. Why? They're hardly in this book. What I mentioned about them earlier is basically the extent of it. I don't think we see them again after that. And so all we see of them have been good things. I'm still expecting negative things from them in future books, but for now, in this book, they were number one. We get to see Emily explore her sexuality some more. She ends up going on a date with the guy she met at church. They have a good time. That's kind of it. And Emily does get text messages about it. And all her text messages from the new A feature them blackmailing Emily because she's started dating a boy even though she thought she was a lesbian, and she doesn't want that to come out. She was worried for two reasons. One, because she was, confused. When you're confused about your sexuality, she thought she was a lesbian, but now she's having feelings for a guy, and that's confusing. But also what other people would think, because she went through all of that to come out as a lesbian. She was outed. Her family felt like she put them through something, even though they put themselves through that. Like, you don't have to react like that. Emily's storyline works out the best. By the end of the story, they all end up at this benefit that Spencer's parents put on after Ian's trial, who, remember, is supposed to be the prime suspect in Allie's killing, but it turns out Ian had escaped and nobody could find him, so they couldn't have the trial. But Spencer's parents, for some reason, decided to still do that benefit. So Emily is there. She ends up bringing Isaac as her date, and it turns out that a bunch of people at her school are there, and so she gets really worried about it. And then she like runs away while they're in a room surrounded by other people from her school who like had previously bullied her about her sexuality. So she like ends up running out of the room. Isaac follows her and is like, what's going on? And she tells him the entire truth, basically, that she thought she was a lesbian. She had dated a girl last year. She had cheated on the girl she was dating with someone else, and her parents sent her to Idaho to try and pray the gay away or something. And then they turned around and accepted her, and like she literally told him all that story, and he was like, oh, okay, that's cool, as long as you still like me. It turned out to be like a good reaction, in my opinion. So that's Emily's personal storyline. We'll get to the actual end of the book after I talk about all the characters. Honestly, Emily is my favorite character so far because, once again, she's the only one with real problems, although her problems are now solved at the end of this book. So A does not have any more things to blackmail her on, so I feel like she should be gone. Like, she should not be part of the story anymore, because she should be like, okay, police officers, I'm getting these text messages, and then just ignore anything else she gets, throw away her phone or something, because what else is A gonna blackmail her on? A doesn't have anything else on her, so she should be free. I'm just saying. Next, in the hierarchy of bad parents, we have Arya's parents, and I want to be clear that Emily's parents right now are like up here. Arya's parents are like off the screen, and then everyone else is below them. So I just want to make that clear. Just because I'm saying they're the second best does not mean they're good. But they're in this place because their previous reactions have led to Arya being in a dangerous situation that she feels so incredibly uncomfortable talking to her parents about what I'm about to tell you, and it's her parents' fault. So like I mentioned, Arya had accidentally started flirting with the guy that Arya's mom had started dating, and once she realized that, she didn't know what to do. And because of that, Ella Montgomery, which is Arya's mom's name, has decided that she is moving very fast with this guy that she just met. You do you, but also you're a parent of 2 teenagers. I feel like you don't need to introduce your kids to your brand new partner of 2 weeks, maybe. Like, I feel like normally people wait at least a few months, right? Like, that's normal. But anyway, it's been like a week, and then Arya's mom is like, oh, family, come to dinner with me and my new boyfriend. And so they all go. His name is Xavier. Mike, Arya's brother, ends up loving him because he knows how to say all the right things. And it ends up being that Arya's mom and Mike go to the bathroom / take a phone call, and it's just Arya and Xavier at the table, and they decide to have a friendly competition where they draw like the people at the restaurant they're at, and like best person wins a cookie. But it's not said best person wins a cookie. Xavier says whoever's drawing is better, the winner gets the last cookie. I've noticed you ogling it. Or haven't you taken it because you're secretly on a diet? What? Maybe she just didn't want to take the cookie. And then Arya scoffs and said, I've never dieted in my life. That's what every girl says, but they're all lying. This is a grown man, I want to say also. We don't need any of that eating shaming of women. I hate that. Thank you very much. And so they have that little friendly competition, and they're flirting with each other, and then A texts them at the end of it, and apparently A was outside and took a picture of them, like comparing pictures and stuff, which in theory should be completely innocent, even if they were flirting, which there is no flirting with a 16-year-old when you're grown. That was not evidence, in my opinion. And evidence of what? Yes, we were both sitting at the table. We had a friendly competition, which is in theory what your mom's boyfriend should do. You know, your mom's boyfriend should be like trying to get along with you, which is how he gets away with this. And I also want to point out, this brought up a question in my mind of how is A in 4 places at once, because at the end there's like 4 chapters in succession of A texting them, like basically knowing exactly where people are at the time that they're there. So I'm like, how does A know? How can A be in 4 places at once? And it's implied to be at the same time. Like, they're all doing different things at the same time. So I don't understand. I guess there could be multiple A's. Like, in the show, there were multiple A's for a while. Maybe the show took that from this. I don't know yet. There are 2 important things that are revealed for Arya during the course of this book. One, every book has this, like, backstory of what happened back in 7th grade. In this one, it was about a capture the flag game that the entire school plays. Students in the school, like upperclassmen, I think, cut up a flag and hid pieces of it, and whoever found the pieces was able to decorate it and, like, claim that piece, and then they all get sewn back together or something. I don't really understand. So it was like a badge of honor to have your own piece, and Allie was like, I'm gonna get the piece. And there was like an ominous thing about it because there was this picture right after Ali had proclaimed that, and Ian was in it. After Ali said that, so he was like, oh, what if someone steals it from you? And Ali was like, they would have to kill me first. And it was implied or said that he would kill Ali for that flag. Everyone else took it as a joke, but now that this whole trial is going on, everyone's like, oh my god, what if it wasn't a joke? Not everyone, just the girls who remember that specific scenario for some reason. And it turned out that Ali's piece of the flag never turned up. It was stolen from her because all of the girls went to her house to try and steal it from her before they were friends, but it was stolen. But it turns out that Arya came up on Jason, Ali's brother, and Ali having some kind of argument, and Jason had the flag, and then Jason gave Arya the flag, and she just hid it forever because she had a crush on Jason at the time. I don't know why this book is so obsessed with making Arya be in love with older people. So that's revealed that she had that piece of the flag the whole time, even though everyone was wondering about it. And the other thing is that the whole time her and Xavier are flirting. It's implied that it could just be like friendly banter between this guy and his girlfriend's daughter. Like most of the things that happen could be construed innocently until one day Xavier shows up at Arya's house to spend time with them and maybe cook dinner for Arya and her brother. But then they're like sitting on the couch, they have like a pillow fight, which could be innocent, but at this point, you know it's not innocent. And he kisses her, and then Arya obviously freaks out because you're my mom's boyfriend and grown, and he's like, oh my god, blah, 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 and then he leaves. And then later on in the book, when we're back at Spencer's benefit, Xavier shows up to the benefit, basically corners Arya and is like, you've been giving off mixed signals. You wore that like see-through pajama set to show me a signal. You walked up here to like get away from me, but you went into a bedroom, so that's obviously a signal. We were flirting and all these things, and then he tries to kiss her again, and this time Arya's like, oh my god, no, you're dating my mom, no, 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 I don't want this. And then he starts to threaten her, and it's literally pedophile. Like everything he says is like a textbook thing a pedophile who doesn't want to get caught says. It's absolutely disgusting. Arya says, I didn't want you to follow me, and I haven't been sending any signals. And he says, I don't believe that. And she says, it's true, I didn't want you to kiss me. You're going out with my mom. I thought you were coming up here to apologize. And then he says the most disgusting, like, this is textbook, I feel like. Don't try to turn it around and act like this is my fault. And anyway, if you were truly freaked out about the kiss, why haven't you told anyone yet? Victim blaming. And Arya says, I didn't want to cause problems. I didn't want anyone to get mad at me. And then Xavier says, or maybe you didn't want your mom to kick me out quite yet. And then he goes to try and kiss her again. Arya says, stay away from me and stay away from my mom too. And Xavier is nasty and says, okay, if that's how you're going to be, but know this, I'm not going anywhere. And if you know what's best for you, you won't say anything to mom about what happened. You know how easily things can be twisted around, and you're just as guilty as I am. Absolutely not. Textbook victim blaming. Ugh, disgusting. And this is the reason that ultimately her parents are failures in my eyes. I know I put them at second, but it's literally just because Spencer and Hannah's parents are worse. Because of what happened with her dad and his cheating and the way her mom treated her, kicking her out of the house because she knew, even though she was a child and obviously was not capable of handling that information. Now, Arya doesn't feel like she can go to her mom with anything. She feels like she'll be to blame because her mom blamed her somehow for her dad's cheating on her. Obviously, A is going to use that to their advantage, and it's terrible. In third place, we have Spencer's parents, who continue to barely speak to her, who continue to not be emotionally or physically there for their child, who is clearly confused about what's going on after being disinherited, and nobody will explain it to her, and they're mad at her for being confused about it. And also, nobody in this family really talks to each other. Spencer, after being disinherited, kind of thinks that she's adopted, and so she ends up with Andrew, who was like her competitor, but now is not her competitor because she was stripped of like everything at school. Recommends her signing up for this website that connects people to their biological families. So she signs up, gives them her information. So that happens. She also has this kind of cute moment with Andrew. She gets a visit from Ian while he's on house arrest. He somehow gets away from house arrest and visits Spencer for a reason unknown. They have a whole conversation about it, but honestly, it is meaningless. Nothing comes out of it except for that Ian thinks that there's extra evidence that the police are ignoring that he can like find out about and like bring forward. So he wants to like find that, but he wouldn't tell Spencer what it was. So we just have that nugget. And the worst parent of them all, I think, is Hannah's dad. and her mom, who just fricked off to Singapore. So Spencer's dad is the worst because, once again, Hannah is traumatized. She has gone through severe trauma. All these girls have, but Hannah especially, even though in the show I honestly hated Hannah, and in these books she's very annoying, very hard to read from, but she's so clearly traumatized. Like, I'm just baffled how nobody is truly doing anything about it. I did mention in the first half that they are going to therapy, but like I said, it was not effective therapy, and nobody asked her about it or anything. She's clearly showing signs of acting out. So her and Kate decide to try and become the best bitches in school. But then, while things are happening, Hannah overhears Kate on the phone, and it sounds like Kate is like up to something. And so in A's text messages to her, they've kind of implanted it further in her head that Kate is out to get her. Kate is not what she seems, basically. When Hannah finally starts to like cozy up with her, like A starts texting her like, oh, she's like not what she seems. And so at Spencer's benefit, she ends up telling everyone that Kate has herpes, because previously Kate revealed a secret that basically she got caught up with a boyfriend or a boy, and something happened and she had to go to the doctor to get it taken care of. So Hannah just decided it must be herpes. So she tells everyone at the party that. Obviously that's very embarrassing for Kate. Lucas, her boyfriend, breaks up with her because he's kind of like the quiet, nerdy guy, and he doesn't really like her being popular, and he doesn't like who she is when she's popular, basically. And seeing her like bully someone like that makes him realize he doesn't want to be with her, and obviously Hannah's upset about that. And it turns out that Kate called Hannah's dad and told on her, which okay, I'm not that I'm saying what Hannah did was correct, but now is the only time you want to call a parent right now. Anyway, Hannah's dad is so not understanding of anything. He was like, oh, I've tried to be understanding because of what you've gone through. And by try to be understanding, he hasn't spoken to his daughter, hasn't done anything to reassure his daughter in any way, just yelled at her because she's not as nice to the step sister that she clearly doesn't like, which obviously that's a different issue, like blending families and stuff, which honestly the whole family should be in therapy. So he punishes Hannah, who's once again clearly traumatized, and it's like so textbook. Clearly, like even Lucas saw it because he mentioned it, and he was like, you think Kate is out to get you because of Mona, right? Her dad doesn't see it? Like what? Like she needs to go to therapy, like real therapy. He was like, I can't believe you would do this. You're so nasty. Like, yeah, she's nasty, which is bad. She needed therapy probably before Mona, but like it is such a clear mirror of what happened with Mona. The worst part of it is, besides the beratement where he continues to never actually speak and have a conversation with his daughter, her punishment is that she has to then spend every basic waking moment with Kate, who is a girl she clearly doesn't like. And maybe in his dad brain, he's like, oh, if they spend more time together, they'll like each other. But how does that make any sense? And he's like, you can't have any other friends, which once again, how does that make any sense? You're not allowed to have any friends other than Kate. Like, what is that even? What? Even outside looking in, pretending there's no trauma or anything, why would you put someone who's bullying another girl in close proximity on purpose? They need therapy! Anyway, that's the whole book. Everybody needs therapy. So yes, in my opinion, Hannah's dad is the worst parent because he does not seem to have any regard for what his daughter has actually gone through. He says it, but his actions don't show it. So yes, that's what happened in all the girls' personal storylines. This all culminates in, like I mentioned, Ian was missing. A ends up sending Spencer a text message to go outside and like look for something, and so she does. And then all the other girls get text messages that basically like threaten Spencer. It tells them to go outside and find Spencer, and Hannah ends up like falling and ends up telling Arya and Emily to like go ahead and find Spencer, even though that makes 0% sense. You think your friend is in danger, so you leave your other friend alone in the same place your other friend is in danger? That doesn't make any sense. But anyway, while Hannah's lying there, sitting there, trying to get up because her arm hurts, she ends up seeing someone in a hoodie, and she couldn't see their face, and they do a shh, like the TV show, and running away. And it ends up that they find Spencer with Ian's body. He's dead now. And A sends him a text message that says he had to go. So that's the end of that. I finished Killer. The ending of this book had some stuff pop off, but the beginning, middle, was just okay. This time we're not going to do it in order of the parents because they really don't matter anymore. If I had to rank the parents, they all suck except for Emily's, because Emily's parents, once again, do not appear in this book. In the beginning of this book, they go get Weldon. Weldon follows them into the woods. Body's gone. Of course, nothing positive can happen for these girls. The girls are obviously convinced they saw a body because, you know, a body was described. I don't know whose body it was. They thought it was Ian. Was it Ian? Did A take the body? I don't know. So the police end up looking all over the woods for Ian's body, and they tell the girls that either he wasn't dead and he like got up and walked out, and they were like, no, he was blue, he was dead. The police eventually conclude that the girls were like lying for attention, but the way they conclude this is at a press conference. The police bring this random psychologist who like starts spouting stuff about how, you know, the people who get used to being in a certain kind of attention will do anything to keep that attention. Meanwhile, the psychologist has not talked to these girls at all. The psychologist can't be psychoanalyzing a patient he's never seen. So that bothered me. I know this book isn't realistic, but it's not allowed. And so this brought a thought in my head comparing to the TV show. In the TV show, when you're watching the show, you're like, why don't the girls ever call the cops? Sometimes it's because A threatens them or whatever, but sometimes the threat is not big enough, in my opinion, for them to not call the cops. This is not police propaganda, but certain situations, especially, you know, in fictional stories, these are 4 white girls, very privileged, call the cops. But in the books, they tell the cops basically everything that's happened, and the cops don't believe them. They get called liars on TV, so no wonder they stop telling the police. Also in this book, Wilden starts to appear suspicious. The police officer who was on their case. The girls keep getting messages from A that basically call him suspicious. They see him doing things that don't make sense. Like at some point, I think he lies to Hannah and says he's one place, but then Hannah talks to Emily and Emily's like, no, I saw him when I was at this place, which wasn't the place he told Hannah, and things like that. So he starts to become sus. Meanwhile, Spencer wins the award for dumbest in this book, I think. Most annoying also, I think. Spencer and Emily kind of tie for most annoying in this book. Hannah was still annoying, but surprisingly Hannah was less annoying. I've started to feel more sympathy towards Hannah since the last book. But Spencer, yes, I sympathize with her because her parents literally don't make any sense, do not seem to care about their daughter at all. They start blaming Spencer because after it comes out that they lied, Spencer's house ended up getting graffitied because people in the town think she's a liar. And there's the word killer is like painted blood red on their garage. Their windmill, which they have for some reason, also gets graffitied on it. Before we find out exactly what happened, Spencer tries to use her computer and she realizes it shuts down and she's like, oh, my computer has a virus, which it's the early 2000s, baby. So she goes to her parents and is like, Mom, my computer, it has a virus. And her mom doesn't even turn around and just says, and. So Spencer's like, well, I needed to do my homework. Can I call Geek Squad? And her mother turns around and starts laughing at her. And she says, why should I pay for someone to come fix your computer when I should make you pay for what happened to the garage? And Spencer is like, what are you talking about? And they find the graffiti on the garage. Spencer's like, oh my God, you need to call the cops. Someone's graffitiing our house. And then her mom is like, do you really think they're going to care that someone did this to her house? Spencer realizes that her parents don't believe her, that they think she's lying about seeing Ian in the woods, and that they're like, this is all your fault. And if they really think their daughter's lying, which, you know, fine. The police could not find evidence of a body in the woods. That means your daughter needs therapy. A child who would lie about something like that needs therapy. I don't understand why they did like 4 therapy sessions in the last book and all of the families are like, okay, that's fine. What is happening? So anyway, her parents treat her terribly, which leads Spencer to make the dumbest decision of her life. I'm trying to remember while I'm reading these that they're only 16. 16-year-olds make dumb decisions. I know. But if you are 16, please make better decisions. Remember how Spencer signs up for like an adoption reunion website to find her birth mother. She ends up getting a match. She goes to meet this woman in New York City and they have a wild, great time. This woman claims to be married to a nice, rich man. She like low-key offers Spencer like, oh, you should totally move to Manhattan so we can live near each other. I haven't told my husband about you yet because he's very rich and worried that like other people will use him for his money, so I didn't want him to think otherwise, but I know you're good for it, so I'll talk to him while I'm on vacation because she conveniently is leaving town the day that they're meeting. And Spencer, you know, her family life is really not great right now because her family, to be frank, sucks. She really marinates in this idea of living like a lavish lifestyle in New York City with her real mom who loves her. And so she ends up going home. She had also ended up hacking her parents' computer to see if they had like adoption records or anything. And she ends up seeing on her parents' computer no adoption records, but she does see her college fund, which has $2 million in it. Oh my God. First of all, what college are you going to? You need $2 million, 4 years. For some reason, if you go to NYU, which I think is the most expensive private school in the States, it's like tuition's like $80K, I think. You still have $1.5 million left. And being extra generous, say you buy anything you want during those years, there's no way you can spend $1 million on 4 years of education. Unless maybe they expect Spencer to be a doctor or something. I don't know. Sorry, besides the point. She finds evidence of this account that has a lot of money. So what does Spencer do after she meets this wonderful birth mother and thinks that she can have a better life with her? She ends up going home. She accidentally took this file folder that her biological mom left with her. The files so happened to contain real estate agent information. So Spencer's like, oh, I'm gonna use that. So she calls this real estate agent, textbook scam, by the way. I have the perfect apartment for you. It just opened up. And Spencer's like, okay, I'll come see it Monday. It was a Friday, I think, when she called. And the real estate agent is like, oh, I'm gonna be honest with you. You know, New York City real estate goes fast. Someone could come in Monday morning and snatch it right up before you have a chance to look at it. And Spencer's like, oh my God, okay. Once again, textbook scam. And she gives him, I guess, her account information. Monday rolls around. She's like, oh, I'm gonna go see my new apartment. She goes to New York City. The apartment building does not exist because Google Maps did not exist at this time, or at least not in this way. So she didn't even check the address. She tries to go to the apartment building that her biological mom said that she was living in. And the concierge, who was actually very nice to her, the book points out that he was rude because he was like looking at her like weirdly and things like that. But he actually looked up this person for her, which I'm pretty sure concierges are not allowed to do like that. They can't be like, oh, this person lives here. Because if you're being stalked, you just confirm to the stalker where someone lives. Anyway, he's like, oh, this person does not live here. And then Spencer decides to look at her account somehow. I guess she has a BlackBerry. I'm really confused on what technology was like in 2009. So she ends up being able to look at the account and it's zeroed out. There's no more money. Woo! So Spencer was dumb. I feel bad for her because, you know, I feel like she was driven, not exactly to that. This is 100% rich girl problems. But, you know, her family was treating her like garbage. But now they're going to treat her even more like garbage because she lost $2 million. Also, I just wanted to point out, since we're talking about money, I believe in my last video I was talking about how privileged the girls are, and a couple people commented mentioning that they didn't think that some of the girls were privileged. I pointed out in the comments, but I want to point it out here. The girls do go to a private school. I know in the TV show it's a public school, but in the books it's called Rosewood Day, not Rosewood High, because it is a private school. And I did look up the tuition for Pennsylvania private schools, and they're around $40K a year, which is private college tuition. So these girls are very wealthy. It is mentioned that Emily is on a partial scholarship. She's still paying $20K a year for high school, so they are relatively well off still. Leaving Spencer alone for now, let's talk about Arya. I guess Arya's situation in this book is the least bad and most realistic, because all Arya did is something that's not unexpected for a teenage girl. Because of what happened with Xavier, she's been avoiding her mom. She started living with her dad because she doesn't want to be around Xavier, and she's scared that if her mom finds out that she used to have a crush on Xavier, then her mom will be very mad at her. Once again, this is Arya's mom's fault. I mean, it's really Xavier's fault, but it's Arya's mom's fault. I think in the beginning of the last book, her mom is like, I found out you were dating Ezra. How are you doing, sweetie? She never has like a real talk with her about dating an older guy. Older, a man who's too old for you, a grown man. You're 16. I don't know what the punishment exactly should be there. I'm not a parent, but there should be therapy at least. But it appears that her parents don't believe in therapy, because when they moved to Iceland, remember in 7th grade after Allie disappeared, Arya had asked her parents to go to therapy, and her mom just told her to do some yoga or something. So we can see why that happened. So yeah, the only wrong thing Arya did was she, you know, tried to hit on an older guy, but that's normal for, you know, teenagers think they're really cool, like talking to a guy in college. Like, that's normal behavior for a teenager. The college guy really has the onus on him not to do that. But also, he's not a college guy. He has the onus on him not to blackmail a 16-year-old. Hannah is just out here continuing to be traumatized, needing therapy. Nobody's giving her therapy. Her family also sucks. The whole video is just going to be me talking about how these girls need therapy. And nobody is giving them therapy. They need it. Anyway, Hannah needs therapy the most. There's so much going on here. And the way her dad reacts, I keep harping on it, but it's just so wild to me that he can't see anything. Like, Hannah is being a bitch. Like, no doubt about it. But she's 16, dealing with all of these things. Do you really just think it's part of her personality? Like, you don't think there's anything you could do to actually help her rather than just dole out weird punishments. But the big thing with Hannah and Kate is that they're like fighting over Mike, Arya's brother, which is really weird. It's just like a sexist little shit in the entire book. He tries to sneak in on Hannah in the changing room. He just says disgusting, I guess, 15-year-old boy things that I would personally never tolerate now. But you know, I'm grown. But it's just, ugh, every time he says anything. And they tolerate Mike dating both Hannah and Kate. It's just so weird. I hate it. I hate every moment of it. It's kind of funny, cute at the end because it's kind of showed that Hannah and Mike are kind of on the same wavelength. They have like cute little moments where they sing along to the same song in a car and stuff. At the end of this, Hannah and Kate kind of sort of become friend-ish, but I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop with Kate. My camera died. Now it's fully charged. In the meantime, I have since started the third book, Heartless, which we'll talk about later. But where I left off, I think I was talking about Emily and Isaac and their relationship. I guess Isaac is like Emily is like bi awakening, although Emily doesn't say a label in this book. She's just kind of like, I think I like who I like, which is fine and valid. But her and Isaac seem to be having a great relationship in the beginning of this book, killer, until Isaac invites Emily over to his family's house for dinner. While she's there, Emily realizes that Isaac's mom has been saying like snide comments and just rude things. Like Isaac's dad is asking about Emily's like swimming career and saying, oh, I've heard you're the fastest in this like specific stroke. And her mom is like behind her food going, I heard she's the fastest, all right. Like saying like snide, slut shaming things, but like secretly, because then Emily's like, excuse me. And she's like, oh no, yeah, I heard you're really fast at swimming. Like, and then Emily decides to do the family a favor and like be a good guest and wash dishes. And while she's doing it, she was looking for, I don't remember what she was looking for, but she opened the drawer and Emily found a photo where Isaac's mom literally cut her head out like a psychopath. So that obviously freaks Emily out. We spend like half the book with Emily being concerned about this. And she finally tells Isaac this is what has happened. And Isaac basically accuses her of being a liar and says that his last girlfriend said the same thing. And Emily is like, well, maybe she was torturing your last girlfriend too. And then he's like, no, she told me after we broke up that she made up the whole thing for attention. And I'm like, maybe his mom threatened her or something, because that's wild. So anyway, they have a big fight. He leaves. It almost resolves at the end because they're once again at this hotel party, because the culmination of the story is that all the girls, everyone ends up at this party to celebrate the opening of the Radley. And if you've watched the TV show, that sounds familiar. But I guess the TV show slowed down some things, because in the TV show, the Radley is still a mental institution. And in the books, Radley has already been converted. They're celebrating the conversion of the institution into a hotel. And so while they're there, Emily is kind of snooping around, or maybe she just walks into a room. I don't remember. She ends up finding this guest book that shows that Jason, Allison's brother, had been visiting for a long time while it was still a mental institution. And during this thing, Isaac shows up and is apologetic and is like, I found the picture you were talking about. I talked to my mom. I know you're not a liar now, basically. And Emily stands up for herself. This is the girl power I want to see from the books, where she's basically like, no, I can't get back together with you. You were so quick to accuse me of lying. I need to be with someone I can trust not to do that. And so maybe in the future we can get back together, but not right now. And I'm like, yeah. Although I was a little sad because I was like, he was the best boyfriend. He's going to be the best boyfriend probably in this book series. But also, she's right, you know? She needs to be with someone she can trust, who she can feels trust her. So go her. So that's Emily's like side plot, I guess. I think I neglected to mention about Arya and Jason. Arya starts dating Jason. She goes on a few dates with him, but it all ends when she invites him to this Radley opening, and he sees the invitation as like the Radley and is like, is this a joke? And then he like leaves Arya in the middle of their date at a climbing gym. A tricks Arya by pretending to be Jason over email to go to Jason's apartment. Arya finds a yearbook that proves that Jason and Wilden were friends, and somehow this all means something because Ian in the beginning of the book had talked to them over instant message because he thought they were Melissa because they were on Melissa's computer, and he's like, they know something about me, that's why I had to leave, blah, blah, blah. And that person is definitely A. I'm not convinced that Ian is not dead. Like, I'm pretty sure he's dead. That was a very convincing body. So I'm pretty sure this is someone else, but that's what Ian said at the beginning of the book. So this, along with the guest book, makes the liars think that Jason and Weldon know what happened to Allie, and it makes Spencer have another thought of what she saw when she was outside the barn after she pushed Allie, and she saw two blonde people and she thought one of them was Allie. But really, Spencer just fixes her memory to whatever the new theory is. That's why she thought it was Ian. That's why she now thinks, oh, it was Jason that must have pushed Allie or like killed Allie, and like now they're hiding it or something. So they all go for this information. For some reason, Hannah keeps getting visions of something, which doesn't make any sense. This book series is not supposed to be supernatural, but at the end of the 4th book, when Hannah was in the hospital, she had this weird dream while she was in a coma of Allie like visiting her. And then in this book, she has a dream somehow of Allie like telling her something about her flag, and it makes her think that the flag is some kind of clue. And so Arya still has it, and she reveals to the girls that she still has it. So she ends up going home to get the flag to show them that what Hannah thinks was on the flag isn't what's on the flag. It all fully culminates in the woods behind Spencer's house getting set on fire. They're all caught up in it. And then Arya ends up seeing someone in a black hood under a tree. She helps save them because, you know, the woods are on fire. They all end up like running together. I don't know what they were doing exactly, but they tried to outrun the fire, I guess. And the girl that Arya ended up saving looked exactly like Allie, but she apparently had no recollection of who they were. And then the paramedics come. That's how Wicked ends. Of course, I've already started Heartless, but before I get to that, I just want to read to you one quote that is why I'm reading this series, really. Philly Sports was in the section of the King James Mall that contained the non-Lux stores. Ghetto places like Old Navy and Charlotte Russe and Shutter, JCPenney. Love that. I cannot explain to you how funny I find that. Obviously it's insulting, but it's just so funny. Like, that is peak writing right there, I feel. As soon as you feel any kind of feeling for any of the girls, you get a line like that. It's so good. But yes, now on to Heartless. One thing I'm noticing about these books is that, one, very, very description heavy, which I'm sure I've talked about before, but they're just so description heavy. I feel like Sara Shepard uses description to be like, oh, see, I'm a good writer, see, I'm painting a picture for you. I guess she is painting a picture, but it just becomes so tedious when she describes every single thing that every character is wearing in every scene. We don't really need all that. And also, it becomes repetitive. This is harder on me because I am reading them in like quick succession. So the fact that every first chapter is like a long recap of something that we mostly already know. It's like one little nugget of something that we didn't know before, but most of it is rehashing that we already got in the previous books, which I'm sure would be helpful if it had been, you know, a year between release. But even these books were released pretty fast, like close together. I'm pretty sure they were going like 2 or 3 books a year. So I'm not sure that was necessary, and it does make for a tedious reading time. But in this one, we get to see the sleepover scene again, and it made me point out that the reason the rest of the girls other than Spencer don't know where Allie went or didn't see her go was because they were hypnotized. Were they hypnotized? Like, why did they fall asleep like that? I want to know what caused that. In the beginning of this book, we see the day after Allie went missing when her mom calls them and is like, do you know what happened to Allie? And they're like, oh, we thought she was with her other friend. And Allie's mom is like, no, I already called her other friends. None of them seem to know where she is. So fast forward to the future. All the girls are in the hospital for smoke inhalation. Spencer got the worst of it for some reason that I don't understand. Now Spencer's parents are like, oh my God, we love you so much. We could have lost you. We have realized that we treated you literally like garbage this entire time. Spencer lets them know she lost $2 million, and they're like, oh my God, it's okay, Spencer. This is really our fault because we should have told you the truth of your birth. And it turns out that Olivia was the surrogate for Spencer's mom because she couldn't have another kid after Melissa. And they explain how Olivia was getting more demanding with money as she was her surrogate and was threatening to keep Spencer away from them if she didn't get more money. So they paid her more money, but they should have expected her to, you know, come back. She was probably just waiting for such a situation, which does feel very convenient, I'm just saying. And it also doesn't really explain why Spencer looked so much like Olivia, because in the last book, Spencer, like when she meets her, she's like, oh, we have the same eyes, the same smile, like all these similar features, and she doesn't feel like she looks like either of her parents. So that doesn't really explain it unless they're lying still and Olivia gave the egg as well. Maybe we'll never know, maybe we'll know, who knows? It took Spencer almost dying for her family to give a crap. So 2 for 2 on families only caring when they think their daughter might be gone forever. First it was Emily's, and now Spencer's, allegedly still to be seen. And I'm gonna leave you all with another quote. Now Hannah's dating Mike, Arya's weirdo stepbrother, who reads so 15 years old, it's disgusting. And this lovely quote, Hannah's explaining the events of the last book for some reason, where she's like, oh, I started dating him just to get back at Kate, but now I realize that I really like him, especially with his ice blue eyes, pink kissable lips, and raunchy sense of humor. Raunchy is one way to describe it. In case you missed that, the series is slowly sucking the life out of me. In case you're wondering, I finished Heartless. You know, this one wasn't that bad, I think. I'm just exhausted, I feel like. I have some notes. You cannot see them at all. I no longer enjoy Emily. I was really here for her, discovering her sexuality and, you know, her second relationship, until he ended up being the way he was. But after that, Emily's just too naive. She's too annoying. She's the only one who's still, for some reason, convinced Allie was like really good or something inside. Meanwhile, they continue to find out ways she was generally annoying, terrible, manipulative, literally horrible to everyone around her, including her supposed best friends. She has not been nice to anyone. She has done so much damage for a 7th grader. I cannot believe it. I, you know, feel a little bad calling a 12, 13-year-old girl a bitch, but she was a bitch. No other way about it. But Emily keeps holding out hope that when she's alive, she got all these girls in so much fucking trouble because she was like, I saw Allie, and all the girls were like, I ain't seen her, I don't know what you're talking about. And Emily's like, no, I saw her. So now they get a whole target on their back. The news is the one that coins them Pretty Little Liars. It's actually said in the series. I can't believe it took 7 fucking books for them to be called that. Sorry, that just occurred to me. But yes, the news starts calling them Pretty Little Liars because they said they saw Allison in the fire, and obviously Allison is supposed to be dead. So they sound, you know, not of sound mind. And then it starts being speculated that they set the fire themselves, that they got caught up in, and all these things. And it's all Emily's fault. You know, I try to give Emily the benefit of the doubt, and I get it. Allie was her first love or whatever. But she's so annoying. A sends Emily to Pennsylvania Amish country, which is weird. But then while she's there, she figures out the family she's staying, one of their daughters who's no longer there, ended up going missing like the day before Allie went missing. And she also finds out that Wilden was from that town and was dating that girl that went missing. So Emily comes up with this idea that Wilden killed the girl from Amish country and then dumped her body in the hole that they found Allie's body in, and that body was not actually Allie's body, and it was that girl's body, and Allie must be alive because she saw her during the fire. And that's the conclusion of that. You know who's also getting on my nerves? Spencer. This is like where the mystery part of the series goes off, because the writing, the way it's written, and red herrings and stuff are either very obvious, or there's so many plot conveniences that it doesn't feel in any way realistic. In the first 2 books or so, I don't remember exactly, Spencer doesn't remember what happened the night Allie disappeared. And then someone tells her something and she's like, oh, I kind of remember this faint vision of me having pushed Allie and she didn't get up, and oh my God, did I kill Allie? And then someone says something else and she's like, no, now I remember that Allie did get up, and then I saw her with someone else and I have a faint memory of that. And then she's able to convince herself it was Ian, but then someone's like, oh, it couldn't have been Ian. And then she's like, oh, no, I didn't see Ian. That's not what my memories told me. Magically, in this book, she has another memory that is also, again, a plot convenience. There's nowhere in the previous, I'm pretty sure 6 books, nowhere does it tell us that the girls left the barn after Allie disappeared. From what I remember understanding, and nowhere does it contradict this, Allie left and they all just went back to bed in the barn. That's what it seemed like. It seemed like it was pretty late at night as well. So there was no reason for them to come home. But all of a sudden in this book, for plot purposes, it turns out that all the girls had called their families to pick them up to go home. And Spencer had gone back to her house because, you know, it was her barn. And conveniently, she has another memory of being in her bed after Allie disappears. And she has a random memory that appears for plot purposes where she remembers Melissa yelling at her dad or something, and her mom was nowhere to be found. And we learn all of this because Spencer's mom ends up telling her that she had to drop out of law school when Melissa was conceived. It was apparently a huge secret that her mom had started law school and that her parents had met during their first year of law school. But then Spencer's able to confirm this by going into her dad's study and finding the yearbook. You never went through your parents' yearbooks, like as a family. Nobody else mentioned it. Like Yale Law School, it seemed like her dad was like pretty into being a Yale whatever that's called. Nobody mentioned seeing your mother there. Like what? That doesn't make any sense. But apparently it was this huge secret that unlocked Spencer's memory. Hannah, I know I've been saying throughout this video that these girls need therapy, but then Hannah gets sent to an asylum, which is not exactly what I meant. I didn't mean for her to be committed. That is once again not the right kind of therapy, I think. That seems like a going from 0 to 100. Not that Hannah was at 0, but her dad was, since he had no conception that her daughter might be harmed by what she's been through, until he conveniently receives a letter, clearly from A, saying, oh, Hannah might be going through PTSD. Here is a facility that might be able to help her. And then he sends her away, which is really good when your daughter already feels abandoned by you, that you then ship her off to another facility. Whatever. This was clearly punishment for me for being like, she needs therapy, so facility. That's okay. At the facility, Hannah once again joins a popular clique, does not get rid of any of her bad habits. I don't even think she's there for that long, I think. Maybe less than a week, because she never makes it to making the phone call home, which only happens once a week. When she went into the facility, she was told that none of the girls knew about her like situation, because you know the Pretty Little Liars are in the news. But then it turns out that Hannah's roommate, who was like her best friend there, was going behind her back and somehow revealing a bunch of information about Hannah to like the news and stuff. That's found out. And then also there's a picture that Hannah and Iris took together in this room that other patients had drawn pictures in the room, and in the picture she sees like a little picture drawing of Allie. And she's like, how did I miss that in the room? But she never gets to the room because she gets arrested. All of the girls get arrested. Oh, I forgot about Aria. What Aria does, oh, she has a seance, which goes as well as expected. She also starts dating Noel Khan, which nobody cares. She asks the seance lady, what do you call that? Person pretends to embody the dead person as Allie. The seance person says that Allie killed Allie. That makes Aria think that Allie killed herself. Who knows? But now all the girls have been arrested. They somehow find out that Aria was holding Ian's ring in the last book or the first book. While they're in the woods at some point, Aria ends up finding Ian's ring in the spot where they said his body was. So she's been holding it for a while, and then somehow the police find out and they yell at her about it when they arrest her. And I'm really not sure how arresting minors is supposed to go, but definitely Hannah's arrest was not legal. You can't just show up to a facility that her parents checked her into without notifying her parents, because none of their parents were notified, I think, or they were notified after the fact. They're all at the police station until it comes out that another body was found. One last thing about Spencer, I forgot about her. Spencer ends up finding out that her dad cheated on her mom, and Allie was Spencer's half-sister because Spencer's dad was Allie's biological father, as well as probably Jason. He says something about kids, multiple kids, but it all comes out because they're taking Spencer to a special dinner, which we find out after, but Spencer gets like real stressed about her or something, and then like Ian IMs her like, oh, they've been hiding things. I don't remember what he says, something that makes her get on edge, and she like blurts out the whole thing. The things that Ian had said made her think that Spencer's mom killed Allie for being her dad's child, I guess, which is not what happened. After she blurts it out, her mom had never had confirmation that her dad had been cheating on her, and it obviously causes a big blow up because you found out that your husband had cheated on you after you had suspected it, apparently. So Spencer's dad leaves. Everyone is mad at Spencer, obviously, and her mom is like, how could you think I'm capable of killing someone? That's like, what the hell, Spencer? And honestly, what the heck? And then Spencer's like, oh my God, was what Ian's saying a lie? And like, clearly those instant messages were not from Ian. And she's like, I cannot believe that after I've been receiving random anonymous messages from someone I do not know, that they would go on another platform to once again harass me. Like, why would you think that's someone you saw die? Anyway, I still think Ian's dead, by the way. So they all get arrested, but then they're all released because there's new evidence. Turns out the new evidence was another body. The new person who was arrested in Allison's murder and the new person's murder is some man who was one of the construction workers who was working on Allison's gazebo and would have been able to bury her body when they were filling the concrete and everything. And it turns out the second body is Jenna Kavanaugh, which was unexpected for me, honestly. I thought it was going to be Maya because she dies in the TV show, but it was not Maya, it was Jenna Kavanaugh. So now we wait. I do not think it was that old man. I don't even think he's being framed. I don't know if he's being paid a lot of good money. Who knows? But clearly he's not A. How would that man know all these things about these girls? Yeah, this is clearly a red herring. I'm a little annoyed about it. I'm gonna read the next book. Hello. I originally came here to give you all my theories for Wanted after the reveal we get at the beginning of this book, but I read too far and now all my theories have been confirmed, which one, proves that I should be a detective, and two, this is my cat. His name is Thor. Isn't he adorable? I love him so much. First, we have a press conference with Mrs. De Laurentiis revealing the existence of Courtney, Allie's twin sister, who was just released from the Preserve, which was the psychiatric hospital that Hannah was in the last book. By the way, there was no acknowledgement of that. Hannah just was arrested from the hospital and then she was cleared of the charges because they arrested that guy. And then I guess her dad decided she didn't need to go anymore, didn't need therapy, nothing. She definitely does have PTSD. I just don't think the hospital was the best place for her. But anyway, Courtney was released from that hospital a few months before the events of the last book, I guess. And so obviously Courtney was the girl they saw in the fire. My issue is that it is then revealed that Melissa knew that Courtney existed. Wilden, the police officer, was like their contact inside the police force and knew that Courtney existed, and they just let them be slandered by the media for saying they saw someone who looked like Allie when they could have at least told them about Courtney instead of letting them think they had gone mad. Once again, adults win 0 points for me in this series. Also, we're really just breezing past, in the beginning at least, the fact that Courtney was in a psychiatric hospital literally their entire lives. The De Laurentiis moved to Rosewood when Allie was in 3rd grade. That means she's been in a psychiatric hospital since the 3rd grade. That doesn't happen without a pretty big reason. So at first, my thought process was maybe this is all an elaborate scam. They faked Allie's death so that they can put her in a psychiatric hospital for some reason we don't know yet. I'm still not 100% sure that's not it. And this was all an elaborate hoax, which I would believe because once again, the parents in this town, terrible, terrible parents. Courtney kisses Emily at some point and she's like, oh, I've been wanting to do that again. And Emily is like, what do you mean again? And Courtney reveals that actually she's Allie. And the night of the sleepover, after she had that fight with Spencer, she ended up going back up to her room, but Courtney was home from the hospital that day or during the summer because when they were younger, she used to like to pretend to be Allison, and then it got really scary where Courtney tried to like drown her or something, tried to kill Allison, and so her parents sent Courtney away and they all moved to Rosewood. So that would explain why we haven't seen her. And then it turns out the night of the sleepover, after the fight that Spencer and Allison had, Allison ended up going back to her room, but Courtney was still trying to pretend to be her, and she was seeming like she was getting better, so that she was home for the summer or something. So she was outside for Billy, the man that they arrested in the last book, to get her because he thought she was Allison. First, I would like to say, if this man was stalking Allison this way, surely he would have noticed there were 2 of them. I'm just saying. Basically, Courtney, now to be known as Allison, I guess, revealed that she was Allison, but since they're twins and she was saying she was Allie, and that was Courtney's whole problem, that she kept claiming to be Allie. They didn't believe Allie when she said she was Allie and thought she was Courtney pretending to be Allie and getting worse. And I feel like in the background there, they thought that she killed Allie or got rid of Allie somehow because they couldn't find her the next day. But anyway, they thought that Allie was Courtney because Allie was supposed to be in the barn that night and she wasn't. So the girl who was killed was Courtney. Twins have the same DNA, which is why it seemed like it was her. And the De Laurentiis sent Allie as Courtney away again because they thought she was still sick. And so she's been away this entire time, and she finally decided to continue to pretend to be Courtney because that's the only way people would believe that she was getting better, even though she wasn't sick. And so that was all very confusing. I'm very sorry for you that you had to listen to me explain that. But basically the next part of the story is her explaining that to everyone else, all of the Pretty Little Liars, who are still being referred to as Pretty Little Liars by the news. And I feel like all these rich parents are not using their rich parent money to get their names out of the news. Like, isn't that the whole point? So that is the big reveal so far. I'm only halfway through this book, so something else is going to happen. I have a couple more questions. So Jenna Kavanaugh was killed. I have a theory why she was killed. Jenna is apparently the only person in Rosewood outside of the De Laurentises to have met Courtney. And so because Allie is now pretending to be Courtney, Jenna would be the only one who knew that Courtney wasn't Courtney. So Jenna had to go, which makes me think that someone, maybe Allie or Courtney, whatever her real name is, did something to help that along. Another thing I would like an answer to, why was Emily sent to Amish country just to plant suspicion against Bolden? Like, what was the point of that? We spent a whole lot of time there. Basically, I think how this book is gonna end, which we'll see in the next clip, Courtney / Allie is gonna get the whole gang back together. She's gonna revive all their popularity and they're gonna be the best clique ever or whatever. But my new theory is that since all of the things that just happened is what I suspected as soon as they revealed Courtney existed, I was like, no, Courtney is the one in the hole. And I was proved correct, but I also think this is wrong. So now I'm thinking that it was a double switcheroo and that this Courtney is really Courtney and that Courtney was the one who like killed Allie somehow and framed that man. This is Courtney now finally trying to get her wish because now Allie's out of the picture and she finally was able to get out of the hospital. So that's my theory. There's some other stuff going on with the characters, but who really cares? So I'll be back when this book is over. I did it. I am free. I freed myself. I finished Wanted by Sara Shepard, the 8th book in the Pretty Little Liars series. We have solved the mystery. I will tell you about the solution to the mystery. I don't remember exactly what I said in the last clip because I'm pretty sure the ending of this book fried my brain. And if I were a better vlogger, YouTuber, I would go watch that clip, remind myself of what I've already told you guys. But I'm just gonna hope editing Lucy can save this because current Lucy, who knows what's going on in here. So blah, 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 all the girls find out that Courtney is really Allie. They all decide to just become friends except for Aria, who's like not ready to believe the first thing she ever hears, which, is surprising because usually they're all ready, but Aria's like, no, something feels weird about this. So the 3 other girls, Emily, Spencer, and Hannah, plus Courtney / Allie, get ready for the Valentine's Day dance. And while they're doing that, they end up finding some incriminating photo things. So there's like a photo on Melissa's computer, which they have access to for a reason I don't remember. They all become convinced that Melissa did something to Allie and like Melissa's the one who really killed Allie or something. And I just want to point out, Spencer is the opposite of a ride or die. Do not go to Spencer for anything. If you ever need to save your ass, Spencer is not the one. She is so ready to give up anybody, any person. In the first 4 books, in the first video, she was ready to give up Melissa. And then in the beginning of this video, she was ready to believe her mom killed Allie and then go to the cops with that. And now she once again believes Melissa did it. And she's once again ready to just throw her under the bus. Opposite of ride or die. They become convinced Melissa did something, but then they find the card for the psychiatric hospital that Hannah had gone to and the one that Courtney was in. So they, for some reason, assume that Melissa had checked herself into the hospital because something must have been wrong with her since she allegedly killed Allie. Even though, once again, they have no proof of that. They have no proof that she checked herself into anything, but for some reason they believe that. So they go to the dance. They all have a good time at the dance, except for Aria, because at the end of the dance, Aria walks in on Allie kissing Noel Kahn, who's her boyfriend. She's like, oh my God, what just happened? And Courtney blames Noel and was like, oh my God, I didn't even do anything. He just like came on me. I couldn't escape Aria. And then Aria, for some reason, believes her and is like, okay, I will come to the Poconos with you because Allie / Courtney was trying to convince everyone to go to the Poconos so it would be just like old times. And so they drive up to the Poconos. Spencer, slightly before they get in the car, gets a call from her mom that Melissa's missing, but for some reason Spencer still believes that Melissa had checked herself into the hospital. And she was like, oh my God, Mom, you didn't hear from the hospital? And her mom was like, why would she be in the hospital? And then Spencer's just like, bye. And is unconcerned. So once they get to the Poconos, Tucker joins me. Courtney / Allie convinces them that to get rid of the memory of the night that Allie disappeared, they should recreate it by letting her hypnotize them again so that they can replace that memory with a good memory from the current night. And for some reason, they all agree to do it because they're idiots. And for some reason, Allie can actually hypnotize people / Courtney, and they all like fall asleep. And when they wake up, They realize Courtney/Allie is gone. They find a note that Allie left explaining everything, and basically what I said before is kind of true. I'm going to try and explain this, but it is absolutely so convoluted. I'm sorry if you do not understand the words that come out of my mouth. The Courtney who says they're Allie is the real Allie, and in 2nd grade, Courtney did try to kill her, allegedly. Courtney was sent away. They all moved to Rosewood when Allie was in 3rd grade, and then Allie was Allie until 6th grade when Courtney switched facilities and she came home for that. And while she was switching facilities, she pretended to be Allie when the girls went to steal Allie's capture the flag. So Courtney was talking to them and Allie was still inside, and they were about to take Courtney to the new facility. And so her mom saw Allie and was like, Courtney, come on. And Allie was like, no, I'm Allie. And then since that was Courtney's whole shtick to pretend to be Allie, they didn't believe her. So they took Allie to the facility and left Courtney. So the Allie that we knew was actually Courtney. And that's why in 6th grade, Allie dropped Naomi and Riley, who were like Hannah's frenemies throughout the series. And they were originally the popular girls because they were friends with Allie. But Allie, who is now Courtney, dropped them because they would have noticed that she wasn't actually Allie if she stayed friends with them and she didn't know anything about them. So the girls who just happened to come to capture the flag, she was like, oh, I'll just make them my friends. And so that Courtney was the Allie that they knew. And then during the sleepover in 7th grade, I guess the real Allie, who everyone was calling Courtney, was home for the summer, and she decided to exact revenge. So she killed Courtney, who everyone knew as Allie. I don't really know what the big plan was there, if she was gonna just try and resume her life, I don't know. But her parents immediately basically sent her back to the facility, and that's that. So Allie/Courtney died. Probably her parents did think it was Courtney/Allie, but really the big question here is, how did nobody notice? I get they're identical twins, but even identical twins have things that are not identical about them. In your family, the Allie that we see in this book says it's because Courtney had stolen her ring because they had like a C ring and an A ring. So Allie was wearing Courtney's ring, which is why her mother didn't believe her. But I'm like, you have no other distinguishing features between your daughters, but they're so distinct, allegedly, that Allie had to kill Jenna, because it's also revealed that she did it. She had to kill Jenna because she might know, but your parents can't tell you apart?
Also would like to point out Jenna was blind.
Other plot holes, this new Allie in this book, when she comes back, she like knows all the things that happened in 6th and 7th grade with the liars, but that was Courtney who was with them. So how would she know that? Because it really doesn't seem like they would be talking to each other, since, you know, Courtney stole her life and everything. So how did she know all that? Was it just Courtney's journals? She wrote down every single thing. Did not make any sense. How was Allie able to, you know, commit all these murders, do all these plots? She's 16 years old. Why did she do all these things at this point now? The reasoning is that she wanted to get revenge for them being lame. She thinks that Courtney befriended them because Allie never would have befriended them, because they weren't that popular, which very weak motive. And like I said, all of this is revealed in a letter that Allie wrote them. And while they were reading this, they realized the house that they're in is set on fire. And then they hear some muffled noises and open a closet to find Melissa with Ian's dead body, which had been rotting for who knows how long, months at this point. And so Allie had planned to kill them all in this house, but they're able to escape. And then the house blows up with Allie allegedly inside of it, and they just watch it. And for some reason, the cops show up, even though they're in a pretty isolated location. There's no real reason why the firefighters and cops would show up. Like, who notified them? I feel like it would take longer than it did for that to happen, but they show up. There's no evidence of Allie being there. There's no evidence of her body or anything. They can't find it. And allegedly her body could have like been incinerated when the house blew up, which for some reason it blew up. I don't understand how it blew up, because it was a house fire. I don't understand how fires work, so maybe that's possible. They lose the letter that they read that explained all of these things. So I'm really surprised the cops believed them that this is what happened, because all they see are a bunch of girls with a dead body and a house that's on fire, and Allie's missing. So I don't know why they believe them in this instance, but all the other instances, they don't believe them. It said like, oh, there's evidence because they find like the notes that A had sent the girls like the phone that had sent them, behind the De Laurentiis' new house, which by the way, the De Laurentiis all go missing, which seems illegal. I don't know, like your daughter allegedly committed a crime and then the rest of the family disappears. Like, I feel like they should be trying harder to find them because they could be harboring a fugitive, I'm just saying. But yeah, they find this random evidence, but I don't know, the cops believed they were masterminds anyway, so why not just think they planted evidence? I'm surprised they came out of it unscathed. 5 weeks later, they're still searching for evidence of Allie, but all the girls are getting back to normal. Once again, need therapy, but they're not gonna get therapy. All of the girls have their happy endings. Hannah's mom realizes that maybe I shouldn't have just fricked off to Singapore with barely any contact with my child. Her mom didn't even know that she was in the psychiatric hospital that her dad had sent her there, but she decided, I'm gonna be a real mom. I'm gonna transfer myself back to Rosewood, gonna kick your dad and his new family out of the house, and we're gonna be a real family, Hannah. She didn't say it like that, but that's what it felt like. Also, she gets back together with Arya's brother Mike, who is once again very teenage boy and disgusting. They had like originally broken up because of some stupid rumors where people said that Mike like left skid marks on his underwear. Very high school, I guess. I don't know. Hannah can be associated with unpopular people, so she dumped him. But now she realized that popularity isn't all it's cracked up to be, and she still looks fabulous. Looks fabulous. And he agrees to take her back, but she has to do a bunch of strip teases for him because he's disgusting. I don't know. I don't get it. Spencer's family is happily broken ever after. Her parents decide to work on their marriage, even though I feel like Mrs. Hastings needs to, have a little more self-respect. I'm just saying, no shade to anyone who decides to like work through cheating or whatever, but he cheated for multiple years, fathered 2 secret children, and hid it from you for almost 16 years. Like, I don't know what there is to work out from there. And the only reason you found out is because your daughter told you. Like, he didn't come clean about it. Somehow he was hiding money, which I don't know. I feel like if you're getting married, ladies, look at your bank accounts. The joint bank accounts, you should know what's going on with your money. I'm just saying. But they're working on their marriage. Her dad is still moved out, but they're gonna have a weekly family dinner. And Spencer's like, this is what it's like to be a normal family. Arya's family is also happily broken ever after. Her dad's new wife, fiance, I don't know if they got married, has the baby, which will be Arya's half-sister. Her mom dumps the who was threatening Arya, who we forgot about, I think, for the last 2 books. I don't think he's appeared. I guess because Arya was staying with her dad, but felt like a big plot point. But Arya tells her mom, like, this is what he did. And she was like, oh my God, disgusting, and dumps him. So she's back to having a happily ever after family. And she gets back together with Noel Khan, which nobody cares about. Emily, her character was slowly morphed to have no more personality other than being in love with Allie. So she puts the stuff she has left over from her basically shrine to Allie into the Allie that she knew, who was Courtney's grave, to like lay her idea of her to rest. And so now I guess she's free of her. Nothing really with the family stuff. She doesn't get back together with that guy. She doesn't find a new girl. Although Maya didn't die, so I was surprised at that. And then the last chapter has a reveal, not really a reveal, but it's implied that Allie maybe survived and she's about to become queen bee of another school. And the last paragraph is told in second person and says, there's something familiar about those names, isn't there? Sort of like a scrambled version of your favorite song or an anagram of a common phrase. The girl looks familiar too. You've seen that sparkly, I know something you don't smirk before. You think of a picture on a milk carton you saw long ago. You think of that girl on the news. Could it be? Nah, you decide. You wave at her and she waves back. Suddenly you have a feeling she's going to pick you as her brand new, very best friend. You have a feeling your whole life is going to change. And just like that, it does. And that's the end of the book. So this is allegedly supposed to be the last book in the series. As you know by now, there are 8 more books because it is definitely a cash grab. But I feel like as an ending, this at least tied up everything. Like I said, the ending is so convoluted with the description of Courtney versus Allie and who's who, and there's no motive. It's very unbelievable. I enjoyed this definitely better than Unbelievable, which was the end of the first arc, just because it felt more clean. And I was sort of getting into it, but yeah, it just still wasn't very good. Will I continue the series? Maybe. I don't know where it's gonna go from here because both the Allies are dead, allegedly, even though that last chapter was supposed to convince us she's not dead. But what else is there to do now? I don't know. So I am kind of intrigued by that, but also not kind of intrigued by that. So we shall see. Leave it in the comments down below whether you think I should read the next 4 books. The next 4 books also don't have audiobooks, so it will take a lot more out of me to do that, but I'll do it if you really want me to. Thank you so much for watching. I know this video was surely very, very long. I appreciate you watching. Once again, in the comments down below, let me know if you want to see me read the next 4 books. Let me know anything you felt about the Pretty Little Liars series. Just leave me a comment about anything. I need to go, I don't know, wash my brain or something. I need to remove this from my mind. I need to cleanse myself or something. I will see you in my next video. Subscribe to my channel, etc. Bye.